right, Sharifa, welcome to She Will Not Fall. I'm so excited that you are here. Literally when I was thinking about season 2, and I was like, who you were literally the first name. Like that popped up. I was like, I have to talk to her. So I'm so grateful that you're here and that you're present. And for those who cannot see this episode, y'all, Sharifa's hair is so glorious. Like it needs its own Instagram.
Oh my goodness.
Twitter. Like it is a crown. You hear me? And I'm here for all of it. It is glorious.
Thank you.
So by way of introducing yourself, so like last season, and for everybody who's listening, season 2 literally is about liberation. That's the theme for season 2. And last season, we were just hearing the stories of women. And so they were telling us how it started versus how it's going. This season, we decided we would flip it just a little bit. So for people to get to know you, if you had to describe yourself as a song title or a book title, what would it be and why?
This is such a good question and such a stumper of a question. But what came to mind strongest is His Eyes on the Sparrow. So my love for that song began because my grandmother would sing it. And I ended up singing it for her funeral. And she is one of the most foundational people in my life, in my spiritual formation, and in just being raised, by her, along with my parents, of course, but not of course. Every family structure is different, but
exactly.
My grandmother lived with us and really embodied faith that I couldn't understand until later. And I sometimes wonder if God is watching over me. And that song is a prayer and a hope in those times. So
that's so first of all, I've always loved that song.
Really?
Yes. And I remember the first talent show that I was in, me and my friend sung that song, but we
way.
Yes, we sung it the Sister Act way, like with Lauryn Hill and the other girl. Yeah, so but I don't think I really gained a real appreciation for it until like I got older. Because I love songs that start with a question.
Yes.
Like I really love songs that start with a question. And so, that's a good one. That's a really good one. I love it. So we're talking about liberation. That's a heavy topic. And I think
none of your questions are light. There are no breezy questions.
No, it's like if we gonna do a thing, we gonna do a thing, right? Okay. So I feel like people can have different definitions of what liberation is, especially when it comes to our own personal experiences. So how do you define liberation? Like what is the definition for you when it comes to liberation?
That's again, really good question. And I feel like I'm in process, honestly. So I need to have room. I think part of liberation is having room to change my mind or to expand with new information. So Nina Simone described freedom as being without fear. And I think that's just a really good foundation. Although I think fear is always with us. But I think that there is an aspect of liberation that requires the absence of terrorism. Think of what we exist under right now, especially as Black people living in America. And terror is a real palpable part of our existence, of having to talk to our children about how to stay alive, um, uh, uh, not knowing how we'll be treated wherever we go, how mundane activities can be become lethal. This is um, a terror state for us, and and has always been in this country, unfortunately, and continues to be. So I think that liberation from where I'm standing is the absence of terrorism. There's also a safe possibility of failure that I will add to that.
Mm.
I think that there are other people in society who get to make mistakes and live.
Yeah.
They get to make mistakes and have second chances, and they get to make mistakes and be restored. So I think there's an inequity in, and depending on what body you exist in, to have the opportunity to fail and to try again.
Yeah.
I think that I had to write my answers down.
No, that's totally
I
fine.
can remember them.
You are just like me, because the way my brain is set up, I can't remember. I'm like, oh, that's a good thought. Let me write it down.
Right. Listen, and you know me, I'm distracted by glitter. So like, we've established that that's part of who I am. So anyway, I think that liberation also involves being free to be mediocre, being free to risk, and being free to imagine. Those three things are on like a vast spectrum, but it's there's a lack of confinement involved in that. There's just freedom to build, but not for confinement, but for definition. There's a freedom to, just be, and not have to be a perfect, saintly person in order to receive love or justice. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And honestly, I think that makes even more sense for Black women.
Yes. And that's the like foundation of my definition.
Yeah, because we are always having to do this, be this, in order for love to be. And I think I don't know if it was a quote from somebody or I saw it on Twitter. I don't know, because I don't be remembering things, but it was something along the lines of that Black women, you are worthy of love without abuse first.
Yeah.
Like, we feel like we have to tolerate, because we have to, you're not really loving them, and you can't receive love unless you're enduring some type of harm or some type of abuse. And so, I just those words, your words resonate, because it's like, no, I am worthy of it. I am worthy of love. And like you say, there is a section of TikTok called Black Woman Mediocre TikTok, where Black women get to do the bare minimum and still be amazing. And it's like, so Black women are just like doing their nails or sipping on some coffee, or they're just laying in bed. It's so great. It's like, this is so liberating.
It is. Am I gonna have to join TikTok, because I've been resisting, but I love that idea.
I love it. And it's like, so TikTok has it where you can save sounds and you can add it to your video. And so every person that does these videos, it's a woman says, welcome to Black Woman Mediocre TikTok, where Black women are it's just so great.
Bless the person who came up with this. Bless that person.
It's just so great, because I think a lot of times love for us is attached to labor. And I'm like,
it is.
It's always attached to labor.
We have all the strings attached. All of them are attached to us. And it is just, it's real antichrist to me. I don't think that, it's that serious of a problem. It's that serious of a problem.
Yeah.
We're not made to be mules. It's not what we were created for. So
Exactly. And I think with a lot of, especially Black women, you have to go in the world and be that. And then a lot of times in their home life, they feel that. And a lot of Black women that have been in my circle and even in my family, where I know that they're breaking down, but it's like, I have to keep doing this. And it's like nobody sees them, like we can't be a safe space for everyone else, but who's a safe space for us? When do we get to rest?
yeah.
Right? Like, when do we get to rest? And I think that's a part of loving me, is that there is a space for me to rest and just not have to pretend, and that I can cry, I can do whatever I need to do, and that it doesn't belittle, because I think some people feel like it's that strong Black woman trope, and as soon as a Black woman displays that, no, I hurt, no, I cry, no, I get upset, no, it's like somehow we get diminished in people's eyes. And I'm like, I don't understand. I'm a human being, right? Like, I'm a human being.
Yes.
So I just identify with what you're saying. And that's a part of liberation for me. Like, liberation for me in this moment is I can't code switch anymore. Like, it is being able to be wholly and authentically myself, and not being concerned about anything. Because here's the reality: the same people that we're like, oh my God, what do they think? They don't care anything about what you think, how you feel. Right? So for me right now, liberation is that. Like, I have to be authentic to who I am.
That's beautiful.
Period.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. So we know you as a preacher. We know you as a writer, and y'all, Sharifa has this way with words that, like, I forgot what I was reading of yours, and like, I felt my eyes start to burn because I felt like tears welling up, and I was like, why is she writing like this? This is so disrespectful. It was like, what? I wasn't ready. I was not ready for this today. Like, so your words, you just have this way with words. So how do you see liberation playing into the things that you do, even like as a mom, like even in all the different identities that we can hold in life? Like, how do you tie liberation into what you do?
Yeah. So I think that liberation is it's a group activity, and then there are individual responsibilities tied to it, but it has to be a group project, because if I'm free but you're not, is that liberation? I don't think it is. So there's such a interdependence involved in liberation activity, but for me, I think writing is a way for me to examine the world and to speak prophetically into what is wrong, what is broken, or what is unjust. And it's also a vehicle for me to explore who I am without those shackles, like what I want beyond the struggle. What expression is pure joy or goofiness or love or repose, rest, kindness, all of these things. When, I'm very, very good at reacting. And I think that writing is an exercise of imagination. And I think that that is one of the gifts that gets stolen first, when we're always having to respond.
Yeah.
When we're tired. So liberation through my art, through writing specifically, is working through all of those things. It's the things that hurt, and it is the repair. And it's also the exploration of who I am independent of struggle. And as a mom, man, like, oof, it's such a scary, heavy privilege to mother. It's scary. So, but it's also an opportunity to free my boys from, there's just so much in the air, in the ether of the world, toxic definitions of what it is to be a man, or confines of how to express their emotions, of how to process anger and grief and love. And so I would like to set them free, by expanding what their definitions of those things are, by honoring their tears, by reminding them of the humanity of women, independent of their wants, and really practicing that, through how we communicate, but also through how we read scripture. And my biggest joy right now is going through the book of Exodus with them. And we went through the book of Genesis last year. So just watching how they work through concepts of who's powerful and who's not, what God is saying through midwives, what he is saying through trans ethnic adoption, what he's saying through, like, just,
yes,
it's rich. So liberation, I also want them to be free to ask questions. That's liberation.
yes.
So I don't shut them down. You know, we were going through, I think it was Exodus 19 and 20. I want to say it was that, or 21 and 22. It's somewhere in there. And they're talking about laws for property, and people are part of the property laws. Yeah. And my sons were like, hold up. How is this part of God's law? I do not understand.
Yeah.
And I was like, tell me why. Why are you feeling this way about the text? Well, God just finished liberating people. He just finished freeing the Israelites from slavery. Why would any Israelite want to enslave someone after all they've been through?
Ooh.
Good question, baby.
Good
question. It. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I just was like, well, do you think that this is God's ideal? Why do you think this is here? And asking without agenda, because I really want to know how they process. And at the end of the day, I always tell them, you have to look to the person of Jesus, and Jesus has to be your lens. Jesus has to be your translator. And if there is anything that's not compatible with him, then you know that's just not the ideal.
Yes.
You think Jesus would come and say, treat your enslaved people this way? And they're like, no, no, he would free everybody. That's why he came. And I'm like, yes. So that's how we interpret scripture. That there. And that's how, I mean, I think that's a liberative process, because I didn't grow up in an environment where I could ask questions.
Oh.
And I had so many.
Yes. Yes. That part of asking questions is such a critical piece that I love seeing the people around me who are parents. I don't have children, but just watching them do that. And it's what you were saying, like, that's the work of liberation.
It is.
Because
listen, you don't have to have children to be a liberating voice in a child's life. Yeah. I don't want to limit, because I really feel like the beloved community is not a nuclear family and that's it. It's just not. It doesn't work that way. if it did, then Jesus would have to be married with kids in order to be the son of God.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes, no, that makes so
not,
sense. Yeah.
it's just not, it doesn't work that way. And you know, I love highlighting to my kids his love for children and how he was like, come on. And so I want to make that clear too, because you know, you have wisdom to share, you have love
Yeah.
to give, you have gifts that, you know, if we close each other off into like little pods, that we really become malnourished.
Yeah. I'm with you. Like, if ever, and I think I've done it, it just hasn't been in a theological perspective just because of the type of environment I was in. But there was something about listening to kids that freed them. Because I realized that so many of them were in spaces where it's like, shut up, don't talk, no. And it was like, I was like, so tell me how you're feeling about that, or what's going on there. And the looks on their faces like, you're asking me like how I feel? Yeah, I want to know how you feel. What are your thoughts around this? Do you know? And that alone, it was like, that was liberating for them, because they were growing up in spaces where it was nobody paid attention to them, or they're like, oh, you're a kid, you don't know what you, and it's like, no, they know exactly. Like,
Right.
kids are so much smarter than we typically give them credit for. And listen, if I could tell you the amount of times that I have learned lessons from children where I'm like, oh, dang, that's so good.
Right.
More than adults, because
Right.
like, kids are honest and they're gonna say how they feel. And I admire that. So to see a child who feels like they can't express themselves or say that hurt me, or
Yes.
you know, this was upsetting to me. And sometimes even, and I love, people call it gentle parenting. I just think it's regular parenting. Like, this is the way we should be parenting. Is I was watching a mom who, her son would get like really anxious and he would just start crying. And so she would walk through breathing exercises with him to try to get him to calm down. Yeah. And then she said, no, she said, do you have any language around how you're feeling right now? And he would either say, yes, mommy, no, mommy. Then they would try to sit there and explore and try to get to the root of what was going on. And I'm like, yes.
I mean, just the tools that she's giving that child.
Yes.
And just the honor and dignity that she is giving with her time and patience. That's what we all want.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So many of us are trauma parenting. We are trauma parenting. And it's that's a whole other, I mean, it's a whole other topic, just all of the things that live in us through our family histories and through our genetics, just
right.
The things that we have endured and have not had room in this relentless world to just heal from.
Exactly.
I'll add that to liberation.
Yeah.
Room to heal.
Yes. Because that intergenerational trauma that gets passed down. My friend was a therapist. She gave it a definition the other night, and I cannot remember what the term was, but it is literally carrying in your bones from generation to generation to generation to generation. And so when people, especially towards Black folks, Indigenous folks, people of color, I'm like, oh, y'all need to just get over it. That was decades. That was hundreds of years ago. It's like, no, it's present day. You want to know why? Because I'm carrying that. Like, I'm carrying the trauma from my ancestors. Like, it's with me. So that wasn't just years ago, you know? And so, yeah.
They're carrying it too. Here's the thing, like, it's not just us. Because it's a learned behavior to be able to have a Sunday picnic and watch someone burn and hang. Ooh. Right?
Take body parts as
souvenirs. To send postcards around. This behavior is not normal, right? It's not normal to rape and breed people, to sell away your sons and daughters because of what color they are. It is not normal. That is a legacy that also lives in the bones. That is a legacy that also is carried down. And it's, I mean, what is that book? Oh, I want to say it has something to do with grandmother's hands. It's Resma Menachem, and he talks about how trauma lives in white bodies and Black bodies and police bodies. He makes those three distinctions, but it's not. I mean, it's not. This ain't normal, like
It's not.
the trauma. That's trauma too. It's
It
trauma
is.
to be like, okay, so when this body dies, when this body is murdered, we will grieve. But when this body is murdered, we will eat fried chicken and amid the smell of human flesh,
Ooh,
right? So this is
yeah.
not, and that's not normal. It's not normal to be like, well, there goes a 6-year-old kid trying to integrate a school. Let me gather all of my Sunday school ladies and shout at that 6-year-old. Let me create an effigy of a baby coffin so I could carry it so that she can see it, that child.
Yeah.
It's not normal
It's not at
to
all.
cage people at a border,
Ooh,
to give people hysterectomies without consent. This is not normal.
no,
So it's not just living in our bodies. It's just
you're
that we
right.
don't have resources and power to the same degree. It's this is the inheritance of America. So liberation, again, if I'm free and they're not free, then it's not freedom.
Yeah. You just helped me with something because I don't think I've ever really thought about the trauma in white bodies and how that's carried over. Now it makes total sense, this fight against critical race theory.
Ooh.
Because you are
Oh, okay. Yes.
it
Yes.
makes total sense because there are layers to it, right? It's now having to relive the trauma that is already in your body and that potentially is in your child's body. So you don't want your child learning about this. So let's hide this from you. Two, it keeps liberation and healing from actually happening.
Yes, it does.
Because one is setting everybody free in the process because it's facts and this is what happened.
Yeah.
But your children can actually be healed from the generational trauma that,
yes,
come on, like it's like now this makes total sense. So thank you for helping me with that because I have been wrestling like, what is the deal?
Yes.
Now it makes total sense to me.
Yes.
I just had that aha, right? Like, thank you for breaking that down because that was a light bulb for me.
Yeah.
Wow.
You need to get that book. I think it's My Grandmother's Hands.
I'm gonna see if I can find it and then I'm gonna put it in the show notes. Like, okay. Yeah, I'll definitely see if I can find it. That was revelation for me. So kind of in that same vein with like critical race theory and all of those things, there are systems designed to keep us oppressed. And a lot of times oppression is not having access to information, not having access to truth, right? With what you do, what are some ways that you feel like you can help knock down these systems that are seeking to oppress us?
It feels so overwhelming to think about. When I saw that question, I was like, wait, let me see what I can write down. Because I just, it is overwhelming. Who was I listening to the other day? Angela Davis. She was talking about the fact that she does not see her one life as important as the movement towards a better world. So she's like, yeah, my lifetime, I won't experience the fruition of this fight that I'm fighting. I'm okay with that. And her okayness with that was just really inspirational, and humbling. And I think that, like I said before, fighting systems is not, it's not something that only an individual can do. So there's a real sense where I it is impossible for me, Sharifa, to knock down a system. I think that it is imperative that I join hands with people. Like I'm an artist, so I guess I'm an artist, a creative. So my words are my best tool to ask questions, to point towards inconsistencies, to dream.
Yeah.
And because I center my hope in faith in God, that I root it in knowing that Jesus himself had a dream, like, of this kingdom that is better than the systems that he was that killed him.
Yeah.
um and he was willing to die for that better kingdom, and so, and live for it. He was willing to do both.
Yeah.
So there's a sense where I need, my faith looks like pulling down the kingdom of heaven wherever I can, however I can. um and that's the kingdom of heaven. It's a place where people are loved and welcomed. It's a place where the the poor receive and the rich are sent away empty. It's a turning over of whatever the status quo may be that
Yeah.
that oppresses groups of people and only elevates those with whatever their bank account is, whatever their skin color is, whatever their gender is, whatever their sexual
Right.
orientation is. Like, the kingdom of God is opposed to the status quo of this world. So I use my writing, I use my parenting, I use my friendships, I use encouragement, and money. Those are very real. Like,
Yeah.
where I spend my money, how I spend my money, who I support with that money, um, who I support with the encouragement that I give, but also, like, using my words as a proclamation or a prophecy or a
Yes.
psalm or a lament or a dirge or an encouragement or praise. That is how I contribute my little part of a vast movement towards better, towards beautiful, towards that kingdom, that better kingdom.
Yeah. That's powerful, because I think earlier you were saying that basically your writing is prophetic, and it is. But something that's powerful about prophetic voices to me is they speak to what they see now and they tell the truth, but they also speak to the hope or the judgment that's coming from the harm that is being
Yes.
perpetuated in present time.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that for me is a part of how we knock down systems of oppression.
Yes.
Because we keep speaking, we keep writing, we keep speaking the truth.
Yes.
And I will say, especially in this current climate, the truth may cost you something, because it's probably going to cost you something, but that we keep going. I think I've said this on a few podcasts, is we have to be okay with being those lone voices in the wilderness.
Yes.
People will come to where truth is, but you
Definitely.
have to be very okay with being that lone voice and keep saying, listen, and keep proclaiming what is true, and
Yes.
keep proclaiming, stay on the wall, don't get down.
Yes.
Stay on the wall.
Yes.
Right. So that's a big piece of it for me, is that we keep going, is that we can't quit. We have to have spaces, we have to have writers, we have to have poets, we have to have artists and who paint and who just create all forms of art, because that's a part of the liberation. It's such a part of the liberation. When you think about the Harlem Renaissance and just the brilliance of creatives who were voices, who were aiding in the soundtrack of us having a more perfect world and what this could look like, and even speaking language to our pain.
Yes.
Like, that's just as important. So I say it's present day, but it's the hope of what can be.
It
so
is.
Yes.
All of that. And of course, music has to be a part of that too.
Yes.
And I know you know that.
Yes.
Sometimes the words just aren't enough, right? So, and it's just, and it's so a part of how we survive, how we keep going, is in that expression and that voice. And there's so much, for me, I feel the weight of how my women in my family were silenced, and the honor it is to speak, to sing that witness of who our ancestors were, as well as, witness that we are still here because of them, and be a witness to the future generations of what our love gave us courage to endure. That just imagining future, a future is like an act of revolution. And it is like it's a hope that it won't always be the way it is.
Right. Yeah. To think that we are fighting for the world to be a way that we may never get to experience, but other generations will. And they'll think back on, my grandmother, my great grandmother, my great great grandmother, my grandfather, my great, like, just to think of all of the people in their lineage who fought for them to have this type of world.
Just like we were fought for.
Right.
We're so miraculous.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So any final thoughts that you have? And if you want to speak to women as women fight for liberation, because a big piece that I've noticed is that we sometimes, is what you were just saying, as women, a lot of times we sometimes are silenced, or we're so used to being silenced that we just stop speaking.
Yes.
Right. And so I don't know if you want to speak to women who are fighting to get their voice back and fighting to get that power back, to be liberated in order to speak and be and do all the things that Creator has given them to do. And be free in who they are.
I think, I have a lot of kinship with the woman who doesn't recognize her own voice anymore, because in order to survive, she has had to be quiet or change her tone so it would be more acceptable, or pronounce her consonants in a certain way so that she would be deemed professional, or be demure so she would be considered lovable, and smile when she needed to be polite. I have all the empathy and kinship for that woman. I think that it's possible for us to speak in ways that shame people who are in process. Um, and it is a hard thing to free oneself.
Mm.
It takes so many people to become free. And it takes people who are able to say, what you did was for survival, and you don't need to do that anymore because you're safe. You know, I think that, yeah, we have to fight for a better world, but we also have to make refuge for us, because a lot of us have had to lose part of ourselves in order to live. And now they have to find those lost pieces. And they can only do that and explore that and process that through safe spaces who reflect back to them in a way that's free of shame, that this is the world that we live in, where we have to lop off pieces of ourselves in order to walk through many a space.
Yeah.
So part of liberation is recovery. It's rest. It's not being catty with other women. It's not comparing ourselves with other women. It's not petty jealousies with other women. It's not the debasing and tearing down and gossip of other women. It's knowing that you can be, you know what it's like, where you're like, oh, this woman is a sister.
Yes.
She is not a person pretending to be a friend who will stab you in the back. We all know, we've all experienced unsafe women, or women who have upheld the things that hurt us, that oppress us, that silence us. Part of just being free is a relearning. It's a reparenting. And we can only do that in spaces that actually allow us to do that. And so we have to be that space. We have to create that circle. And even as we're in process, because I don't know about you, but I don't feel like I'm free. I'm always like interrogating myself.
Yes.
Why am I doing this? Why do I believe this? Is this a coping mechanism? Is this how I've been socialized? Is this of God?
Yes.
Like, I feel like I'm always doing that. So, but you can't process these questions with everybody.
So true. Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, like, I'm so grateful. Like, I might cry, but I am so grateful for the friends in my life who my questions are safe with, who can even say, I had the same struggle, girl. I don't know. Mama stay here with you because I still don't understand why God sent Hagar back.
Yeah.
I feel like Hagar.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I don't want to go back. Like these kind of.
Yes. You need that space to ask the really tough questions, but also a space where you can challenge those really easy answers. Like,
yes.
Right? Like, you need that safe space. And even with me, like, now, because I think I've matured a lot in the past 3-4 years, if I'm feeling something towards another sister, right, who has not done anything to me, has not harmed me in any kind of way, I immediately now have the self-awareness to know there's something in me. What is that thing?
Right.
To go explore that, because sometimes when we don't have the language, we wind up harming people who have not harmed us because we need to deal with our own introspection and our own mess and trauma and whatever else we've experienced. And women are not my enemy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not my enemy.
Right.
You're my community. You're my sister. You know, now if you are harmful,
that's a whole other thing.
Right. Like, because I will tell you about yourself, and I would say to you, I want you to heal because you are harming people. Yes. And there's something going on there. Yes. But ultimately, no, we're not in competition. I want every woman around me, associated with me, I want you to win.
Win.
Please go win. Like, I want to cheer you on. I can't even imagine feeling like, oh, well, no, because I remember somebody did ask me this. I was shouting out podcasts of other Black women and women of color. And they were like, why would you do that? You have your own podcast. I was like, first of all, I'm not in competition with these women. There's room for all of us. I grow from them. And hopefully something I said helps them. I'm like, we're all in this together. So of course I'm going to promote them. I want them to win. Like, I don't even understand why. So I think we can't buy into this competition narrative that people try to put us in. Yes. Because it makes us miss out on real liberation, which is being in community with other women.
That's right. Absolutely. That is like, that scarcity and that competition is so wrought from the broken system of this country that says only one person, only one group can be on top, and everybody else, you want to be on top, so climb over everybody else. That's not the way. It's not the way
at all. Sharifa, I'm gonna be sitting with this conversation. Seriously, because you dropped so many gems and things for me to think about, and I know whoever is listening, for them to think about. And I'm grateful for that. Like, I'm so grateful
for you. Like, I was just so excited to be able to talk to you. Yeah. Not on Twitter, not through like little Twitters, and just to see your face. And just to watch you and to hear you. Yes. You beautiful soul.
Oh, you are too. Like, and I tell people this all the time. I'm like, it's crazy, but like, I have the most amazing community on Twitter. And I'm like, I've met the most incredible people, and like, who are just genuine, and we push each other to be better. Like, yes, seriously. And I'm like, so I am really, really grateful for that. And how can people reach you, follow you, anything you want to promote? The floor is yours.
So, I'm a terrible social media person. I am so inconsistent. So, but I on Instagram and on Twitter, I'm Sharifa Writes. I have a Substack that I started last month because our Twitter community is so great and makes us better. So I started that last month. Do I remember what it's called? I don't. So Marielle's going to put it in the show notes.
Yes, I will put it in the show notes.
It might be like Sharifa Stevens Substack. I do not know. I just started it. So, and then my website is sharifastevens.com, and that's a great place for booking and some archived writing of mine. So yeah.
I love it. So all of that will be in the show notes for everybody. You can
Bless you. Look, it's full circle. I don't remember anything. So that's why I have to write it down, and I did not write that down.
I had to write everything down. I am so grateful for you. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule just to have a conversation. Like you say, I'm so happy to see your face. And
likewise.
I have to tell you, I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see her smile. And then I also cannot wait to see her hair, because
thank you. She's doing so well today. I gotta say, like, look, some of these, blink.
I love it. It's just so glorious. It's
Thank
so
you.
glorious. But I'm grateful that you were here. And so of course you're welcome back anytime
Thank you.
for us to have these conversations.
I would love to.
Yes. I'm full. I don't have nothing. I don't like I'm just so full. Like, oh my goodness.
Me too.